If you own a clothing brand and you manufacture in China, well, things are about to change quite a bit. Trump just announced these crazy new tariffs, literally just worldwide, but very severe tariffs on China specifically, as well as in Vietnam, Pakistan, all of these very big countries where clothing brands are manufacturing their clothes. So the prices of clothes are about to go up quite a bit. And for clothing brand owners like myself who do manufacture primarily in China, this is going to be a pretty big hit on our businesses. So I've been doing a ton of research figuring out what exactly does this mean and, what is the best path moving forward. So in this video, I'll be breaking down everything about these new tariffs and what we can actually do about it. All right, so my name is Eben. I own a brand called Omni. I manufacture pretty much all of my clothing in China. I've been working with manufacturers in China for about 4 years now. And in the past, tariffs have already existed. Tariffs were around 15% on average. And usually that is just included into the shipping costs. So if you're paying for your bulk manufacturing overseas, usually the tariffs are just included within that shipping cost. But now Trump is talking about moving these tariffs up to 54%, and that actually goes into effect pretty much as of today. So he just announced a 10% tariff on pretty much every export from any country in the world. So 10% on literally everything. But then specifically for China, he did the extra 34%, and that is stacked on top of 20% that he already added for fentanyl related shit. So now it is a total of about 54% tariffs from China. So pretty much what does that mean? That means that on the goods we are manufacturing in China, we are now going to have to pay a 54% tariff on, those bulk clothes that we're getting. So that means we're going to have to be spending like an additional 40% essentially on manufacturing. And so let me break down what a tariff is in the first place. A tariff is essentially just like a tax on imported goods from another country. So when you're getting things shipped from country to country, as they're passing through customs, they are hit with taxes and fees and tariffs to go into that other country. So these tariffs have been a bit of an issue in the past, and so big brands such as like Nike and Gap, Lululemon, they have already started diversifying their manufacturing to other countries. So I know some of them were moving manufacturing to Cambodia or Vietnam, but now Trump has been targeting those countries as well. So now I think Vietnam has a 46% tariff. Cambodia has 40%. Pakistan is another big one that a lot of small clothing brand owners like myself use. And Pakistan also has 29% tariffs now. So essentially, there is nowhere to hide from these tariffs. They are here to stay for now, as far as we know. And so you can't really just, find another country because, like I said, the tariffs are getting hit to every country. There's a 10% tariff now worldwide, which is obviously a lot better than 54%. But again, all of those big clothing manufacturing countries have really high tariffs now. So it is pretty unavoidable at this point. And typically these tariffs are just passed through the supply chain. So in reality, what we're going to see is that consumers are going to be the one probably, bearing this cost. So prices for everything are about to go up a lot higher. So I've been seeing a lot of people, stocking up on groceries, like not just clothing, like everything, because it seems very likely that everything is about to go up in price. So I have a couple notes as well that I've just been reading from articles. The Footwear Distributors and Retailers of America president predicted that lower income families and the places they shop would feel this impact the most. And he said that a pair of Chinese made children's shoes that cost $26 today will likely carry a $41 price tag by the back to school season. And so pretty much that is probably what we can expect for all clothing. It is really like a 40% increase in price from clothing coming from China. Okay, now let's break down how much we are actually going to be paying if you are someone like me who does own a clothing brand and is primarily manufacturing in China. So let's go over this example here. If you were to order 50 hoodies at $30 each from your Chinese manufacturer, that would be a total cost of $1,500. And for the shipping cost, that would probably be about $500 on average. Now, typically, like I said, shipping costs and tariffs are usually bunched into one fee. So when you're getting your clothes manufactured overseas, generally you're just paying one bill. You aren't paying for shipping and tariffs separately. But for the sake of this example, I'm going to split it up just to show you the numbers. So let's say the shipping is $500 and the tariffs were $225 on that $1,500 order in the past. So in total, you're paying around $725. So the total landed cost would be $2,225, which means that your landed cost per hoodie would be $44.50. Now, after this 54% tariff, you would be looking at $810 for the tariffs. So that makes your total landed cost $2,810. So that bumps your landed cost per hoodie up from $44.50 up to $56.20. Now, as you can imagine, if you are a clothing brand and you are getting these hoodies in the past, they're $44. Let's say you're selling them for $80. That's a $36 profit. But now with these 54% tariffs, you're looking at $56 per hoodie. And clothing brands have plenty of expenses already, so it is not feasible to sell a $56 hoodie for only $80. So if we want to keep having profitable margins for our clothing brand, prices are just going to have to go up. We still have to worry about marketing and advertising expenses, as well as any softwares for our website, returns, chargebacks, fees, all of that stuff, photo shoots and whatnot. There are quite a lot of expenses, and clothing brands already have pretty slim margins as is. So like I said, we actually did have tariffs before this. I don't think a lot of people realize that, but we did have about 15% on average tariffs from China before. And so you guys, if you are manufacturing in China, you've already been paying those tariffs. It's just part of your shipping cost. But now the average tariff just worldwide has literally doubled. So it used to be around, 14, 15% on average, but now it is up to about 30% on average. And then in China, it's actually more than tripled. And so one expert calculated this could mean $26 billion in duties on apparel imports alone. And that is more than double of last year's imports. Okay, so a big question that I've been hearing is, are these tariffs actually here to stay? Is this the new normal? Is this, going to go away at some point? So unfortunately, it does seem that these tariffs are here to stay. And really, it is going to they're going to be here until somebody budges. So right now, Trump has been putting out all these crazy tariffs, and it's obviously making a lot of people very upset and really just kind of instigating this trade war. And so pretty much until other countries budge on it and, are willing to compromise and make a deal somehow, it seems that these tariffs are going to stay. And it does not seem that Trump is going to be budging on this either, which, maybe that's just part of his negotiation strategy. Who knows? But considering that these tariffs are actually now effective, going to be best for us to just assume that they are here to stay and figure out what is actually the best path forward. So I actually have a bulk order on the way to me right now, which I have not received yet. So are these new tariffs going to apply to orders already being shipped? So for this order, I paid about $4,000 in total. It has not arrived yet. It's probably going to arrive in the next week, which is after the tariffs go into effect. So unfortunately for me, that means I'm probably going to have to pay additional tariffs on this order, even though I've already paid for the entire shipping cost, which included the taxes and the fees, the tariffs. I paid for that weeks ago. So I should not have to pay for more. But since they will be going through customs after these new tariffs go into effect, it's pretty likely that I'm going to be hit with a new bill and have to pay even more money for that. And so if you are in the same boat, you have bulk on the way, you are probably going to have to pay extra money because of these new tariffs. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but it does seem like that is the case, and I would prepare yourselves to pay that money, because if you did not pay that money, it is likely they would just send all of the packages back to the manufacturer and you would not get it. Okay, now here's the big part. What do we actually do about this? So I hit up all of my manufacturers and pretty much asked them, how is this going to affect our business together? What can we do about it? And so I'll put the messages up on the screen, how they responded. They were pretty chill. So they said, I'd like to explain to you that the new tax policy will not affect the unit price of the goods, but it may have a slight impact on the freight price. So that's another thing to understand, is you're not going to be paying higher costs per unit. It's just going to be higher costs for the tariffs alone. But obviously these tariffs are extremely steep, so it is going to increase the cost of our landed product quite a bit. But pretty much all of my manufacturers said the same thing. They said, please rest assured that as long as we continue to use the air or sea freight tax inclusive services provided by the freight forwarder, the overall impact will be very limited. Now, what this means is they are talking about the shipping terms when you are getting your bulk shipped. So take notes here because there are multiple types of ways to ship your bulk orders from China to US or from, whatever country you are in. And the shipping terms that you're going to want to use is called DDP. That means delivery duty paid. So for that $4,000 order, I paid all-inclusive shipping and taxes together. So they sent me a bill. Let's just say it was $1,000. I paid the $1,000 and they ship all of my packages from China to my doorstep, and I don't have to pay any more taxes when it goes through customs. I don't get hit with another bill when it arrives on my doorstep. I just pay for it once, and then it shows up at my door a week or a month later, depending whether I chose sea or air shipping. So I recommend for all of you guys, use DDP shipping terms. Otherwise, if you are using other terms like DAP or EXW, you will probably get hit with other fees when it goes through customs or when it actually arrives to your doorstep. And by using DDP, you can ensure that the price you're paying up front is the full price and you're not going to have to pay anything else later. Except in this new situation now where these new tariffs are going into effect now, but that is not something that we can really plan for. All right, so I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, well, if there's all these tariffs on all these other countries and you're someone like me who lives in the US, should we just manufacture in the USA then? Okay, well, here is why this whole thing just does not make any sense and why it's pretty stupid. So the US does not have the manufacturing capacity to take on all of this manufacturing from these brands who are manufacturing overseas. Like, we can't just bring all that manufacturing to the US. The US is not able to handle that amount of capacity. Not only that, we don't have the machinery or enough workers to make that possible. It is not like US manufacturers are just like sitting around shops collecting dust. They're like hungry for customers. It's just there aren't that many manufacturers in the US compared to another country like China. So apparently the number of people working in apparel manufacturing in January 2015 was 139,000 and has now shrank to 85,000 by January of this year, and that's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So in the US, apparently there's only 85,000 apparel manufacturing workers. Now in China, that number is in the millions. There are millions of workers in China who work in apparel manufacturing. Now that is such a vast number. It is just actually absurd. And simply, the US is not built for this shit. Like, China is built for that shit. That is why they are the #1 manufacturing country in the world. They have so many workers who are in manufacturing, and they have so much advanced machinery and technology to actually handle all of this manufacturing capacity. So manufacturing in the US is actually going to cost you more money, and it is actually going to be lower quality in general. Like I said, they don't have the same machinery or technology to actually make it happen. Now, obviously, that is general speaking. There are going to be really high quality manufacturers that you can find in the US, but in general, you're going to be able to get higher quality stuff made in China at a lower cost. Now, another reason why it's stupid is because a lot of US manufacturers actually get their materials from overseas countries like China. There are many materials that go into clothing manufacturing and footwear, and a lot of those materials are not even available in the US. For example, cotton. Like, you have to grow cotton, and all of these other materials that go into it, some of those just don't exist in the US, period. So you might have a manufacturer in the US who does all your cut and sew, but they might get all of their fabric from India. And so it's still going to cost you more money because your manufacturer is now going to have to be paying much higher prices for their fabric. So it really just doesn't make much sense at all. And it would take so many years for the US to be able to get to a point where it could handle the manufacturing capacity that another country like China or Vietnam already has. So honestly, I plan to continue manufacturing in China. I'm going to look at some US manufacturing. I think it's smart to diversify your manufacturing in general, but I do believe that China is still going to be the best option. Plus, I have great relationships with my manufacturers in China. It has taken me so long to actually find these relationships. I've gone through so many different manufacturers, and finding new manufacturers is simply just a bitch. It is not the most fun process, and it can take quite a bit, after going through multiple samples or bulks and figuring out which ones are actually good versus which are not. All right, guys, so these tariffs are definitely fucked, but here are 10 things that we can actually do to solve this issue. So the first thing is going to be raising your prices. I definitely will be raising my prices for my brand. Unfortunately, I don't see any other way around it. I think this is probably going to be the most obvious one and probably what most people are going to do. I think prices are going to be going up. It does seem a little bit unavoidable at this point, and clothing brands, like I said, just do not have great margins already, so it is not really something that I can afford and that most people are probably going to be able to afford to, just take that extra cost and absorb it into their margins, because otherwise there will not be any profit left over at the end of the day. Now, the second thing is going to be being really smart about which products you are actually manufacturing. So some items are actually better than others. Some items have better margins than other products do. For example, jewelry can be manufactured at a very low cost, but you can sell it at a very high cost because it has a much higher perceived value. So this is what I like to call a high leverage product. Whereas a cut and sew t-shirt might cost you $20 to manufacture it. People will sell t-shirts for, I'd say, $40 to $50 on average if it's a cut and sew t-shirt. So that's a pretty low margin. You'd only be making $20 to $30 per t-shirt, and that's before all your other expenses. Whereas, say, with a jacket might cost you $60 landed, but you could sell it for, $160 or even up to $200 or more. Now, the third thing is going to be selling used clothes. So DIY clothes is always an option. So screen printing, sewing, airbrushing, etc. Used clothes from the bins are not going to be going up in price, most likely. However, the issue with that is it is much harder to scale a brand when you're actually hand making every single piece yourself. But it is always an option, and I bet that used clothes are going to be increasingly more popular if these tariffs are sticking around. Now, the fourth thing is going to be strengthening your branding. So if you have strong branding, you can charge whatever prices you want to. So luxury brands have historically been able to thrive through uncertainty like this because they have very strong branding. They can pretty much charge whatever prices they want and people are going to buy it. Because if you have strong branding, that means that you have strong pricing power. Because if somebody is buying something for your brand specifically, they're buying it for the brand name, to be a part of that brand culture. That means that it is something that they can't get anywhere else. Whereas if you are just a regular brand and you don't really have any strong branding or anything that sets you apart from other brands, that means you're just competing on price. And if there's another brand with a better product or just, better, lower prices than you, then customers are probably going to go with the other brands. Now, the fifth thing is to negotiate with your suppliers. So all of these manufacturers, they are very aware of this situation. And if you've been working with a manufacturer already, they are not going to want to lose your business. They might not be able to do anything, but it is at least worth asking. And there are definitely ways that you can cut costs, whether it is through, shipping terms or sourcing new fabrics or just whatever. There are definitely ways to cut the costs, and pretty much just asking them if there's any way that you guys can kind of share this pain together, because you really want to continue working with them, but at this point, you don't know if it is going to be possible, and you are worried about that you won't have enough money, And pretty much just telling them that you do want to keep working with them. You're just worried and not sure if you will be able to work with them. And trust me, they will do whatever they can to keep your business, because I know for a fact they will not want to lose you as a customer or a potential customer. Now, sixth is going to be exploring new countries for manufacturing. Now, this is not bulletproof. Like I said, all countries are getting hit with tariffs. However, there are countries with lower tariffs than others. I do think it is smart to diversify your manufacturing in general. Even if these tariffs went away tomorrow, I still think it is worth having manufacturers in multiple countries. And so Mexico and Canada are currently have 25% tariffs. This could change any day now, and that is kind of why it's just tricky to do this, is because it's kind of like, chasing a moving target. all of these tariffs could change whenever. We could wake up tomorrow and they're all gone, or we could wake up tomorrow and they're all fucking jacked even higher. We really do not know. However, it does not hurt to start looking at other manufacturing connections. So, start looking in the US. Maybe there are some manufacturers that are not going to be hit with the tariffs as hard. Maybe they do have local fabric sourcing, so they are not paying extra money for sourcing fabrics overseas. Or maybe you are manufacturing in Mexico or Canada, which has lower tariffs than China does. Now, seventh is going to be getting all of your bulk manufacturing shipped by sea. So if you guys are still shipping by air in 2025, you are just losing out on so much money. I have been shipping all of my bulks by sea for the past several months because it is literally half the cost of shipping by air. If you don't know anything about this, shipping by air takes about a week, and shipping by sea takes about 4 weeks. So it takes 3 weeks longer for shipping by sea, but it is half the cost. So shipping by air might cost you $1,000, whereas shipping by sea would be $500. And obviously, over time, when you're ordering quite a bit of bulks, this number is going to add up pretty fucking huge. So shipping by air is much quicker, but it is much more worth it, in my opinion, to wait an extra 3 weeks and pay half the price. Now, this leads us to the eighth thing, which is just going to be cutting costs all around. So these tariffs are most likely here to stay. So it is in our best interest to figure out how we can cut costs in all areas of business. So the shipping one is huge. That's just, very simple, easy. Stop shipping your bulks by air. Start doing it by sea. You will save a ton of money. And look at other areas of your business that can also be optimized better. So if you can optimize your ad results better, maybe you can, streamline your marketing budget a little bit. Just make sure you are not wasting money anywhere or spending more than you should be, because now is time to trim the fat more than ever. Okay, now the ninth thing is just avoiding any sort of panic moves at all. So in times like this, it is very easy to panic and do some dumbass shit. So don't just rush into a new manufacturing connection just because they are in a different country with lower tariffs, or they're offering you some crazy deal to avoid these tariffs. A 10% tariff in a new country is not going to save you money if the product shows up to your door unsellable because it's just terrible quality. Don't rush into new manufacturing connections. Still make sure you are vetting these manufacturers very well and ensuring that they are doing very high quality work, and then just make sure they aren't cutting corners to offer you lower prices. So for example, a lot of clothing brand owners will manufacture in Pakistan because it is generally cheaper than manufacturing in China. As a small clothing brand owner, I would say that most small clothing brands manufacture either in China or in Pakistan. And a lot of new clothing brand owners I will see will start out manufacturing in Pakistan because they will get a much lower quote. They can manufacture their clothes for much cheaper. However, the product shows up to their doorstep and it is much lower quality, or they literally just get scammed completely. I've seen that happen at least 20 times. So generally, you get what you pay for. If it is very cheap, there's probably a reason for it. Okay, now the 10th and final thing is just to keep your customers close. So be transparent with your customers. Obviously, everybody knows about these tariffs. It is not, some secret. So just be transparent about it with them. If your prices are going to increase because of these tariffs, say it straight up. I guarantee you that the brands that make it through this and navigate through it the best are going to be the ones that are transparent throughout this whole process. If you're transparent and honest with your customers, most of them are going to understand the situation. Customers just want to feel seen and be heard and feel like you actually care about them. And if it just seems like you only care about money and you don't care about the customers, so you're not, keeping them in the loop, a lot of them are not going to like that, and they're probably just going to find another brand that does actually care about their customers. So give a shit about your customers, keep them in the loop, be transparent, and be honest with them. Okay, so am I worried about these tariffs? Honestly, no, I'm not that worried about it. Yes, it does suck very much, but what are we going to do about it? Like, are we just going to sit around and cry about it like a baby? Or are we going to figure out how to actually move past it? The reason why I have peace about this and why I'm not, freaking out about it is because I know that this is something that is happening to literally every single person right now. So a lot of people are freaking out right now, wondering if clothing brands are over, if the clothing brand business model is just fucking wrecked now. But the thing is, this is not just happening to you. It is literally happening to everybody. And there's going to be, that 99% of people who freaks out about it and complains about it and never actually figures out a solution. And then there will be the 1% of people who do figure it out, think logically, not just thinking emotionally, and finds the best solutions and figures out how to move forward. Whatever the implications are, I know that all of my competitors are going through the exact same thing. So the best thing that I can do is, not freak out about it. Just take a step back and assess the situation and figure out what is the best way to move forward. And this is, there is a lot of uncertainty right now. These tariffs, we don't even know if they're going to say, we don't know what the final number is going to be. Literally, as I'm filming this video, I'm just looking up more news and Trump's talking about 104% tariffs. Just looking at it right now. So if it's 104%, then we're definitely fucked. I don't know if I'll be manufacturing in China. If it's 104%, that would just ruin everything. But like I said, it's happening to all my competitors too, so I'm not really that worried about it. Unfortunately, I do think a lot of consumers are probably just going to be not buying as many clothes in general. I think a lot of people will probably stop spending money on clothes if they are increasing by 30 to 40%. And that might just be the harsh truth of it. But it also means that a lot of people are probably going to quit. There's probably going to be a lot of brands that just throw in the towel at this point. And the ones, that keep pushing, I guarantee you in 2, 3, 4 years, those brands are going to be thriving and we are going to be coming out of this stronger than ever. And honestly, it kind of makes me excited that there is something happening like this because I know so many people are just going to quit, throw in the towel, and I know I'm just going to keep pushing and figure out the best way to move through this. So I think a lot of the competition, the weak competitors are going to get weeded out, and we'll see which brands, can make it through this. So anyways, things still might change. If there's any big updates and I have different opinions after this video, after hearing more news, I'll make another video about it. But I would assume it's probably still the same advice that I just gave you. So these tariffs are definitely a massive curveball for us clothing brand owners. A lot of brands are probably going to quit. A lot of customers will probably stop buying clothes. You'll be paying more money than you already have been. Your margins will probably be even worse than they already are. But there will be brands that come out on top of this. The weak brands will fade out. The brands that can successfully navigate through this are going to come out the other side thriving, stronger than ever. And all of us are, bootstrap startup entrepreneurs starting these clothing brands. We're used to challenges. You cannot have signed up for this not knowing there are going to be challenges coming. So this is just another challenge. This is just another problem to solve. Take a deep breath, assess the situation, create a strategy, and make the moves that you need to make. And if you do want guidance throughout this whole process and help from me personally, you can join my private community for clothing brand owners so you can always stay in the know about all of this stuff and always know what is the best path forward, what am I doing with my business and what are other successful brands doing to navigate through this, and get specific help with your brand, plus 6 hours of course content, over 200 pages of knowledge and tips, and access to all of my personal manufacturers, plus any manufacturers that I will potentially be working with in the future. So if you are interested in that, you can apply. The link is in the description. Anyways, I appreciate you guys for watching, and if you have any more questions, just drop a comment and I will respond to it. All right, y'all, good luck. Peace.